उन्होंने बताया कि विकसित भारत 2047 तक का जो सपना है वो सभी के संकल्पों और सभी के सहयोग से पूरा होगा, जिसके लिए सरकार प्रतिबद्ध है। बजट सत्र का आज का ये पहला दिन और संयुक्त सत्र को राष्ट्रपति का संबोधन, ये मंच केवल एक औपचारिक कार्यक्रम नहीं, हमारे देश के भविष्य को दिशा देने वाला एक महत्वपूर्ण अवसर है। और अपने काफिले के साथ राष्ट्रपति द्रौपदी मुर्मू का संसद भवन परिसर से प्रस्थान होता हुआ और इसी के साथ बजट सत्र का विधिवत आगाज। बजट सत्र दो चरणों में होना है और इस दौरान देश के आर्थिक भविष्य का पूरा खाका, लेखा जोखा खींचा जाना है। आज एक और महत्वपूर्ण कार्रवाई होने वाली है जब देश का आर्थिक सर्वेक्षण वित्त मंत्री निर्मला सीतारमण द्वारा पेश किया जाएगा और आज से राष्ट्रपति के संयुक्त सत्र को संबोधित करने के पश्चात बजट सत्र का विधिवत आगाज। बजट सत्र जो कि 2 चरणों में विभाजित किया गया है। पहला चरण आज यानी कि 31 जनवरी से शुरू हुआ है, जो कि 13 फरवरी तक चलेगा, पहले चरण की अवधि। और उसके बाद दूसरा चरण यानी कि बजट सत्र का दूसरा हिस्सा 10 मार्च से शुरू होगा, जो कि 4 अप्रैल तक चलेगा। और इस दौरान महत्वपूर्ण विधेयकों को पास कराने की कोशिश होगी, तमाम मुद्दों पर चर्चा होगी। राष्ट्रपति का जो अभिभाषण हुआ है उसके धन्यवाद प्रस्ताव पर चर्चा होनी है। आज का दिन बेहद महत्वपूर्ण, क्योंकि आज वित्त मंत्री निर्मला सीतारमण देश का आर्थिक सर्वेक्षण जो है वो सदन में प्रस्तुत करेंगी, उसे पेश करेंगी। और कल बेहद महत्वपूर्ण दिन जब आम बजट, यूनियन बजट ऑफ इंडिया पेश किया जाएगा, जिस पर पूरे देश की निगाहें टिकी हुई हैं। देश की आर्थिक स्थिति का लेखा जोखा, जिसे आर्थिक सर्वेक्षण कहा जाता है, आज उसे पेश किया जाएगा। और उसके पश्चात कल यानी कि 1 फरवरी को आम बजट वित्त मंत्री निर्मला सीतारमण पेश करेंगी। तस्वीरों में आप देख सकते हैं राष्ट्रपति जी का प्रस्थान होते हुए राष्ट्रपति भवन की ओर वो प्रस्थान कर रही हैं संसद भवन परिसर से। और आज दोनों सदनों को संयुक्त रूप से संबोधित करने के बाद ये गौरवान्वित करने वाला पल, जो कि हमारे लोकतांत्रिक मूल्यों को दर्शाता है, हमारी सांस्कृतिक विरासत को दर्शाता हुआ ये पूरा भव्य दृश्य, जिसमें आप देख सकते हैं इस भारतीय गणराज्य के मुखिया, देश की महामहिम राष्ट्रपति द्रौपदी मुर्मू ससम्मान पूर्वक पूरे लाव लश्कर के साथ राष्ट्रपति भवन की ओर प्रस्थान करते हुए। तो बजट सत्र की औपचारिक शुरुआत हो चुकी है। आज पेश होना है देश की आर्थिक स्थिति का लेखा जोखा, जिसे वित्त मंत्री निर्मला सीतारमण पेश करेंगी। और ये सिर्फ एक औपचारिक कार्यक्रम नहीं है, हमारे देश के भविष्य की दिशा को देने वाला एक महत्वपूर्ण अवसर है। इस सत्र से जुड़ी हर बहस, हर चर्चा और हर विधेयक हमारे संकल्प की गवाही देंगे कि भारत सिर्फ एक राष्ट्र नहीं बल्कि एक विकसित शक्ति के रूप में उभरेगा। आप देखते रहिए संसद टीवी। मुझे दीजिए इजाजत, नमस्कार।
और इसके साथ सरकार की
when the Finance Minister presents the Union Budget in the Lok Sabha. Now you can listen to the speech in your own language.
Honorable Speaker,
Understand how this budget aims to meet aspirations, empower the youth and shape India's future. Because every budget decision impacts your life. Budget will define India's growth and progress. Watch it live on Sansad TV's YouTube channel on 1st February 11 a.m. in English, Hindi and other Indian languages. What is Contingency Fund? This fund is an imprest that is placed at the President's disposal. It is used by the government to incur urgent and unforeseen expenditure. Parliamentary approval for expenditure is taken after it is spent, and an equivalent amount from the consolidated fund is recouped to the fund. Constituted by the government under Article 267 of the Constitution of India. जब लोकसभा में वित्त मंत्री बजट पेश करेंगी, तब उनका बजट भाषण आप सुन पाएंगे आपकी अपनी भाषा में।
Honorable Speaker,
समझ पाएंगे देश का बजट कैसे जुड़ेगा आपके सपनों से, क्योंकि बजट के हर फैसले का असर होता है सीधा आपकी जिंदगी पर। बजट तय करेगा देश के विकास की दिशा और प्रगति की राह। संसद टीवी के YouTube चैनल पर देखिए बजट का सीधा प्रसारण 1 फरवरी सुबह 11 बजे से अंग्रेजी और हिंदी के साथ साथ अन्य भारतीय भाषाओं में भी। What is non-tax revenue? These are revenues generated from various services like medical services, electricity and transport provided by the government. All receipts and expenditure from railways are routed through the consolidated fund. The most important receipts under this head are interest payments.
Jai Mahakumbh, Jai Mahakumbh, Jai Mahakumbh, Jai Mahakumbh.
जय महाकुंभ पग पग जयकारा महाकुंभ तन कुंभ कुंभ मन कुंभ कुंभ जीवन सारा अब कुंभ कुंभ।
जय महाकुंभ पग पग जयकारा महाकुंभ तन कुंभ कुंभ मन कुंभ कुंभ जीवन सारा अब कुंभ कुंभ।
इस सत्य सनातन धारा का सौभाग्य हमारा महाकुंभ। जय महाकुंभ पग पग जयकारा महाकुंभ।
जय महाकुंभ पग पग जयकारा महाकुंभ तन कुंभ कुंभ मन कुंभ कुंभ जीवन सारा अब कुंभ कुंभ। जय महाकुंभ, जय महाकुंभ।
संगम तीरे
जय घोष हुआ,
जय महाकुंभ
उद्घोष हुआ।
अनमोल धरोहर संस्कृति की इस पुण्य घड़ी की दस्तक सुन। संगम तीरे जय घोष हुआ, जय महाकुंभ उद्घोष हुआ। अनमोल धरोहर संस्कृति की इस पुण्य घड़ी की दस्तक सुन।
जय महाकुंभ पग पग जयकारा महाकुंभ तन कुंभ कुंभ मन कुंभ कुंभ जीवन सारा अब कुंभ कुंभ।
जय महाकुंभ जय महाकुंभ। धरती प्रयाग की
धन्य हुई
यह कुंभ की नगरी,
गम्य हुई
जन जन की जय जयकार में अब गूंजे चहुओर से यही धुन। धरती प्रयाग की धन्य हुई यह कुंभ की नगरी, गम्य हुई जन जन की जय जयकार में अब गूंजे चहुओर से यही धुन।
जय महाकुंभ पग पग जयकारा महाकुंभ तन कुंभ कुंभ मन कुंभ कुंभ जीवन सारा अब कुंभ कुंभ।
जय महाकुंभ जय महाकुंभ
जय महाकुंभ जय महाकुंभ जय महाकुंभ।
पावन त्रिवेणी की तन मन निर्मल
निर्दोष हुआ
इस पुण्य प्रयाग की धरती पे तुलित सौभाग्य मिला कई गुण। पावन त्रिवेणी की धारा में तन मन निर्मल निर्दोष हुआ इस पुण्य प्रयाग की धरती पे अतुलित सौभाग्य मिला कई गुण। जय महाकुंभ पग पग जयकारा महाकुंभ तन कुंभ कुंभ मन कुंभ कुंभ जीवन सारा अब कुंभ कुंभ।
जय महाकुंभ पग पग जयकारा महाकुंभ तन कुंभ कुंभ मन कुंभ कुंभ जीवन सारा अब कुंभ कुंभ। जय महाकुंभ जय महाकुंभ जय महाकुंभ।
What is consolidated fund? The consolidated fund is made up of all revenues and loans raised by the government. It also includes receipts from recoveries of loans granted by it. All government expenses are paid out of the consolidated fund. No amount can be withdrawn from this fund without Parliament's approval. जब लोकसभा में वित्त मंत्री बजट पेश करेंगी तब उनका बजट भाषण आप सुन पाएंगे आपकी अपनी भाषा में।
Honorable Speaker,
समझ पाएंगे देश का बजट कैसे जुड़ेगा आपके सपनों से,
the global
क्योंकि
economy
बजट के हर फैसले का असर होता है सीधा आपकी जिंदगी पर। बजट तय करेगा देश के विकास की दिशा और प्रगति की राह। संसद टीवी के YouTube चैनल पर देखिए बजट का सीधा प्रसारण 1 फरवरी सुबह 11 बजे से अंग्रेजी और हिंदी के साथ साथ अन्य भारतीय भाषाओं में भी। What is direct tax? These are taxes where the burden falls on the person on whom it is levied. These are largely taxes on income or wealth. Income tax on corporates and individuals and securities transaction tax are direct taxes.
29 अगस्त 1947 वह दिन जब दुनिया को लोकतांत्रिक मूल्यों और आदर्शों का बोध कराने वाले भारत के संविधान का प्रारूप तैयार करने के लिए भारतीय संविधान सभा द्वारा डॉक्टर भीमराव अंबेडकर जी की अध्यक्षता में कुल 7 सदस्यीय प्रारूप समिति ड्राफ्ट कमेटी का गठन किया गया। डॉक्टर भीमराव अंबेडकर के अलावा श्री अल्लादी कृष्ण स्वामी अय्यर, श्री एन गोपाल स्वामी आयंगर, श्री कन्हैयालाल मानिकलाल मुंशी, श्री सैयद मोहम्मद सादुल्ला, श्री डीपी खेतान और श्री बीएल मित्तर इस प्रारूप समिति के सदस्य मनोनीत हुए। प्रारूप समिति ने 30 अगस्त 1947 को अपनी प्रथम बैठक के साथ कुल 141 बैठक कर भारतीय संविधान का प्रारूप तैयार किया। संविधान के प्रारूप पर कुल 7,635 संशोधन भेजे गए। जिनमें से 2473 संशोधन सभा में प्रस्तुत किए गए। 14 नवंबर 1949 को संविधान का अंतिम प्रारूप तैयार कर सभा के समक्ष प्रस्तुत किया गया। इसमें कुल 395 अनुच्छेद तथा 8 अनुसूचियां निहित थी। अंततः 26 नवंबर 1949 को हमारी संविधान सभा द्वारा भारत के संविधान को अंगीकृत, अधिनियमित और आत्मार्पित किया गया तथा 26 जनवरी 1950 को संविधान संपूर्ण देश में लागू किया गया। हम भारतीयों को स्वतंत्रता, समानता तथा सामाजिक, आर्थिक, राजनीतिक न्याय का अधिकार देने वाले अप्रतिम दस्तावेज एवं विश्व के सबसे बड़े हस्तलिखित संविधान के मनीषियों को संविधान प्रारूप समिति के गठन दिवस पर शत-शत नमन।
What is public debt? The difference between the borrowings and repayments during a year is the net addition to the public debt. Public debt is split into the internal debt, money borrowed within the country, and external debt, funds borrowed from non-Indian sources. Internal debt comprises treasury bills, market stabilization scheme, ways and means advance, and securities against small savings. When the Finance Minister presents the Union Budget in the Lok Sabha, now you can listen to the speech in your own language.
Honorable Speaker,
Understand how this budget aims to meet aspirations, empower the youth and shape India's future. Because every budget decision impacts your life. Budget will define India's growth and progress. Watch it live on Sunset TV's YouTube channel on 1st February 11 a.m. in English, Hindi and other Indian languages.
Parliament of India, the state-of-the-art structure, stands as a symbol of India's progress and aspirations. Tailored to cater to the changing requirements of a contemporary time, the new Parliament building offers upgraded technological infrastructure and improved amenities for parliamentarians. As part of an initiative to make Parliament paperless, electronic tabs are now available in the lobby of the Rajya Sabha chamber. Till the 265th session of Rajya Sabha, members' signatures were collected manually in ink on the attendance register. However, in alignment with the vision of a digital parliament from the current 266th session of Rajya Sabha, their signatures are being electronically collected on tablets. The Constitution of India provides that if for a period of 60 days, a member of either House of Parliament is without permission absent from all the meetings of the House, his or her seat may be declared vacant by the House. In view of the specific provision that has been made in the Constitution, an attendance register is maintained for members to sign against their names in token of having attended the sitting of the House on a particular day. The attendance register, which was originally introduced as an informal and convenient arrangement for marking attendance of members, is now a statutory requirement with effect from 9th June 1993, on addition to a new provision in the Salary, Allowances and Pension of Members of Parliament Act 1954. The members first need to select their names from the drop-down menu on the tablet, sign using the digital pen, and then press the submit button to confirm their attendance. There is a team of engineers from NIC at every counter for technical assistance.
I am firstly very grateful to everyone associated with the Parliament staff for moving very rapidly towards digitization. And there are many initiatives that the Parliament has taken. One most notably is that every day an MP wastes so much paper in terms of the questions, the list of business, all of that is available digitally on every MP's desk. I personally, as an MP, every morning when I sit in my chair, I scroll through the tablet online, no paper wasted. The new initiative, which has started from this session, which is a welcome initiative, is rather than signing an MP's attendance sheet, again, piece of paper, it's done digitally, a digital signature entered. So these are good things to make Parliament paperless, to make Parliament digital, and to encourage digitization within the MP community and through the MP community to the larger public.
The digital signature for attendance of honorable members of Parliament in the Rajya Sabha is another very historic and momentous occasion, which actually marks the transformation of the Parliament, especially of the Rajya Sabha, from paper to paperless, from paper to digital. Till now, whenever members of Parliament used to come in the morning for the attendance, we used to sign it in the conventional way. But the Honorable Chairman of Rajya Sabha, with his visionary leadership of transforming the Rajya Sabha and the Parliament into the digital Parliament, has been making several transformational changes. And one of that, of course, is making digital signatures as the norm for members of Parliament. This will not only ensure more authenticity, but it would also lead to a greater impact on paperless and more on the digital transformation. I think this is just another step towards Indian Parliament becoming a role model and a lighthouse for various parliaments across the world in usage of technology and especially the digital era.
पार्लियामेंट में अटेंडेंस जो डिजिटलाइज हुआ है बहुत बड़ा स्टेप है और ये आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री श्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी का विजन है डिजिटल भारत बनाने का और पार्लियामेंट में ये होना बहुत जरूरी था और आज हुआ है बड़ी खुशी की बात है और अच्छा एक्सपीरियंस है.
With its sleek architecture and advanced features, the new Parliament building embodies transparency, efficiency, and inclusivity. It aims to foster greater collaboration among parliamentarians and enable a more participatory and dynamic democratic process. One of the key features of new Parliament is the digital infrastructure, which facilitates a paperless working environment. Members of Parliament can access legislative documents, reports, and bills electronically, reducing the need for physical paperwork and increasing efficiency. This shift not only saves time and resources, but also contributes to a more sustainable and eco-friendly approach to governance. In a landmark move towards modernization and technological advancement, India's new Parliament building will surely revolutionize the way the country's legislative system operates. By embracing digital transformation, India has taken a bold step towards modernizing its governance and enhancing the efficiency and effectiveness of its legislative processes.
What is demands for grants? Demands for grants are statements of estimates of expenditure from the consolidated fund. The Lok Sabha votes on them. Generally, each ministry or department presents its demand for grant. जब लोकसभा में वित्त मंत्री बजट पेश करेंगी तब उनका बजट भाषण आप सुन पाएंगे आपकी अपनी भाषा में.
Honorable Speaker,
समझ पाएंगे देश का बजट कैसे जुड़ेगा आपके सपनों से,
the global
क्योंकि
economy
बजट के हर फैसले का असर होता है सीधा आपकी जिंदगी पर. बजट तय करेगा देश के विकास की दिशा और प्रगति की राह. संसद टीवी के YouTube चैनल पर देखिए बजट का सीधा प्रसारण 1 फरवरी सुबह 11 बजे से अंग्रेजी और हिंदी के साथ साथ अन्य भारतीय भाषाओं में भी।
माननीय सभासदों, माननीय अध्यक्ष जी,
Item number 1, Mahasachiv.
Sir, I beg to lay on the table a copy of the President's address, Hindi and English versions, to both the Houses of Parliament assembled together on the 31st January 2025.
माननीय सदस्यगण, मुझे सभा को भारत के पूर्व प्रधानमंत्री माननीय डॉक्टर मनमोहन सिंह जी और हमारे 4 पूर्व साथियों तथा संयुक्त राज्य अमेरिका के पूर्व राष्ट्रपति श्री जेम्स अर्ल कार्टर जूनियर निधन के बारे में सूचित करना है। डॉक्टर मनमोहन सिंह जी वर्ष 2004 से 2009 तक और वर्ष 2009 से 2014 तक 2 कार्यकालों के लिए भारत के प्रधानमंत्री रहे। उन्होंने वर्ष 1991 से 2024 तक 6 कार्यकालों के लिए राज्यसभा के सदस्य के रूप में अपनी सेवाएं दी। वे वर्ष 1998 से 2004 तक राज्यसभा में प्रतिपक्ष के नेता रहे। डॉक्टर सिंह ने वर्ष 1991 से 1996 तक केंद्रीय वित्त मंत्री के रूप में अपनी सेवाएं दी। डॉक्टर मनमोहन सिंह जी का भारत में 1990 के दशक में किए गए आर्थिक उदारीकरण नीति में महत्वपूर्ण योगदान था, जिसके कारण देश की अर्थव्यवस्था में महत्वपूर्ण परिवर्तन आया। अपने दीर्घ, उत्कृष्ट तथा अत्यंत गरिमापूर्ण संसदीय करियर के दौरान उन्होंने वाणिज्य संबंधी समिति के सभापति के रूप में भी कार्य किया था तथा वे वित्त संबंधी समिति, नियम संबंधी समिति, विशेषाधिकारी समिति, सामान्य प्रयोजन संबंधी समिति के सदस्य भी रहे। डॉक्टर सिंह को विश्व में अर्थशास्त्र एवं लोक नीति के क्षेत्र में एक प्रतिष्ठित विद्वान के रूप में जाना जाता है। उन्होंने भारतीय रिजर्व बैंक के गवर्नर, योजना आयोग के उपाध्यक्ष जैसे अनेक महत्वपूर्ण पदों को भी सुशोभित किया। डॉक्टर सिंह को 1987 में पद्म विभूषण और 1993 में वर्ष के श्रेष्ठ वित्त मंत्री के लिए यूरोमनी पुरस्कार से भी सम्मानित किया गया। उन्हें ऑक्सफोर्ड विश्वविद्यालय, कैम्ब्रिज विश्वविद्यालय सहित दुनिया भर के प्रतिष्ठित शिक्षण संस्थाओं से अनेक मानद उपाधियां भी प्राप्त हुई। आर्थिक विचारक एवं चिंतक के रूप में उनके योगदान के अतिरिक्त उन्हें अपनी कर्तव्यनिष्ठा, सरल स्वभाव, विनम्र व्यवहार के लिए सदैव याद रखा जाएगा। डॉक्टर मनमोहन सिंह जी का निधन 26 दिसंबर 2024 को 92 वर्ष की उम्र में नई दिल्ली में हुआ। माननीय सदस्यगण, मैं निम्नलिखित प्रस्ताव सभा के समक्ष विचार के लिए रखता हूं। ये सभा भारत के पूर्व प्रधानमंत्री डॉक्टर मनमोहन सिंह जी के निधन पर गहरा शोक व्यक्त करती है तथा देश की प्रगति और समृद्धि में उनके योगदान की सराहना करती है। उनके जीवन मूल्य एवं आदर्श हमारे लिए सदैव प्रेरणा के स्रोत रहेंगे। यदि आपकी सहमति हो तो इस प्रस्ताव को अनुमोदित माना जाए। सभा की इस भावना को संदेश के रूप में माननीय डॉक्टर मनमोहन सिंह जी के परिवार को प्रेषित किया जाएगा। मैं समझता हूं सभा सर्वसम्मति से इस प्रस्ताव से सहमत है। माननीय सदस्यगण, श्री कुनार हेम्ब्राम पश्चिम बंगाल के झारग्राम संसदीय निर्वाचन क्षेत्र से 17वीं लोकसभा के सदस्य थे। श्री हेम्ब्राम ने कोयला खान और इस्पात संबंधी संसदीय समिति के सदस्य के रूप में काम किया। श्री कुनार हेम्ब्राम का निधन 62 वर्ष की आयु में 21 सितंबर 2024 को कोलकाता, पश्चिम बंगाल में हुआ। श्री हसन खान तत्कालीन जम्मू और कश्मीर राज्य, अब लद्दाख संघ राज्य प्रशासन के लद्दाख संसदीय निर्वाचन क्षेत्र से 13वीं और 15वीं लोकसभा के सदस्य थे। श्री खान ने अनेक संसदीय समितियों के सदस्य के रूप में अपनी सेवाएं दी। श्री हसन खान का निधन 88 वर्ष की उम्र में आयु में 17 दिसंबर 2024 को जम्मू और कश्मीर संघ राज्य क्षेत्र के जम्मू में हुआ। डॉक्टर मांडा जगन्नाथ, अविभाजित आंध्र प्रदेश अब तेलंगाना के नागर कुर्नूल संसदीय निर्वाचन क्षेत्र से 11वीं, 13वीं, 14वीं और 15वीं लोकसभा के सदस्य थे। डॉक्टर जगन्नाथ ने अनेक संसदीय समितियों में सदस्य के रूप में अपनी सेवाएं दी। डॉक्टर मांडा जगन्नाथ का निधन 12 जनवरी 2025 को हैदराबाद में 73 वर्ष की आयु में हुआ। श्री पी.आर. सुंदरम तमिलनाडु के नमक्कल संसदीय निर्वाचन क्षेत्र से 16 लोकसभा के सदस्य थे। श्री सुंदरम ने मानव संसाधन विकास समिति के सदस्य रूप में, सभापटल और अन्य कई संसदीय समितियों के रूप में अपनी सेवाएं दी। इससे पहले वे 2 कार्यकालों तक तमिलनाडु विधानसभा के सदस्य भी रहे। श्री पी.आर. सुंदरम का निधन 73 वर्ष की आयु में 16 जनवरी 2025 को नमक्कल तमिलनाडु में हुआ। माननीय सदस्यगण, मुझे सभा को संयुक्त राज्य अमेरिका के पूर्व राष्ट्रपति श्री जेम्स अर्ल कार्टर जूनियर के निधन के बारे में भी सूचित करना है। श्री कार्टर ने वर्ष 1970 से 1981 तक संयुक्त राज्य अमेरिका के 39वें राष्ट्रपति के रूप में अपनी सेवाएं दी। वर्ष 1978 में राष्ट्रपति कार्टर की भारत यात्रा, दिल्ली घोषणा पत्र पर उनके सहस्ताक्षर ने साझा लोकतांत्रिक मूल्यों पर आधारित भारत अमेरिका संबंधों को स्थायी बनाने की मजबूत नींव रखी। अमेरिका के राष्ट्रपति पद के दायित्वों के निर्वहन के अतिरिक्त कार्टर सेंटर के माध्यम से वे एक बेहतर विश्व के निर्माण के लिए आजीवन समर्पित रहे। मानवता के प्रति उनके योगदान के लिए वर्ष 2000 में उन्हें नोबेल शांति पुरस्कार से सम्मानित किया। श्री जेम्स अर्ल कार्टर जूनियर का निधन 100 वर्ष की आयु में 29 दिसंबर 2024 को जॉर्जिया, अमेरिका में हुआ। ये सभा राष्ट्रपति कार्टर के योगदान की सराहना करती है तथा उनके परिवारजनों, संयुक्त राज्य अमेरिका की सरकार, वहां की जनता के प्रति अपनी संवेदना व्यक्त करती है। माननीय सदस्यगण, महाकुंभ भारत की शाश्वत आध्यात्मिक विरासत का प्रतीक है। महाकुंभ में आस्था, भक्ति और संस्कृति के पवित्र संगम में करोड़ों भक्तजन भाग ले रहे हैं। ये विराट एवं दिव्य आयोजन हमारे देश की अनेकता में एकता की भावना को साकार करता है। तथापि मुझे सभा को अत्यंत दुख के साथ सूचित करना है कि दिनांक 29 जनवरी 2025 को प्रयागराज में महाकुंभ के दौरान एक दुर्भाग्यपूर्ण घटना में 30 श्रद्धालुओं की दुखद मृत्यु हो गई है तथा 60 श्रद्धालु घायल हो गए हैं। यह हमारे लिए गहरे शोक का विषय है। माननीय सदस्यगण, ये सभा भारत के पूर्व प्रधानमंत्री डॉक्टर मनमोहन सिंह जी, हमारे 4 पूर्व सहयोगियों और संयुक्त राज्य अमेरिका के पूर्व राष्ट्रपति जेम्स अर्ल कार्टर जूनियर के निधन तथा महाकुंभ में हुई दुर्भाग्यपूर्ण घटना के श्रद्धालुओं के निधन पर अपनी हार्दिक संवेदना व्यक्त करती है। ये सभा श्रद्धालुओं के शीघ्र स्वास्थ्य के लाभ की कामना भी करती है। ये सभा दिवंगत पुण्य आत्माओं के सम्मान में कुछ देर मौन रहेगी। ओम शांति। माननीय सदस्यगण, जैसा कि आपको समाचार भाग 2 के माध्यम से पहले ही सूचित किया जा चुका है कि माननीय मंत्री जी द्वारा आर्थिक समीक्षा प्रस्तुत किए जाने के पश्चात उसकी प्रतियां मेंबर्स पोर्टल के माध्यम से उपलब्ध करा दी जाएगी। आइटम नंबर 3, माननीय वित्त मंत्री जी।
Sir, with your permission, I rise to lay on the table a copy each of the following papers, Hindi and English version. 1. The Economic Survey 2024-25. The Economic Survey 24-25 Statistical Appendix. Thank you.
सभा की कार्रवाई कल शनिवार 1 फरवरी 2025 को रात 11 बजे तक के लिए स्थगित की जाती है।
Early days of his student life. As a key figure in the Indian New Wave, his films captured the essence of Indian life, addressing social issues with authenticity and depth. His contributions to the silver screen championed social realism, justice, and human resilience. Beyond directing, he was also a screenwriter, editor, teacher, and mentor, shaping Indian filmmaking for generations. One of his celebrated documentaries on our Constitution, Samvidhan, the making of the Constitution of India, first telecast by Rajya Sabha television, remains a mastercraft bringing the scholarly debates of our Constitution for the benefit of younger generation. Sri Benegal was honored with several accolades for his outstanding contributions, including the Padam Shri in 1976, Padam Bhushan in 1991, and the prestigious Dada Saheb Phalke Award in 2005, India's highest cinema award. His passing is a profound loss to the nation. His commitment to artistic integrity and social progress will continue to inspire generations. We deeply mourn the passing away of Shri Shyam Benegal. Honorable members, Shri Pritish Nandi passed away on January 8, 2025 at the age of 74 years. He served as a member of this House representing the state of Maharashtra from 1998 to 2004. Born on January 15, 1951 at Bhagalpur, Bihar, he was a distinguished poet, journalist, and filmmaker whose creative brilliance later extended to public life as well. In Parliament, he contributed significantly to debates on cultural, social, and political issues. His eloquence and passion for arts has significantly contributed to the richness of debates in the House. Sri Nandi was an acclaimed poet and a celebrated author, a fearless journalist, and a visionary filmmaker. He received numerous accolades for his contributions to Indian cinema and literature, including Padam Shri in 1977. His passing leaves an irreplaceable void in literature, media, cinema, and public life. Honorable members, His Excellency James Earl Carter Jr., former President of the United States, passed away on December 29, 2024, at the age of 100. Born to a humble farmer and a nurse, President Carter's extraordinary journey in public service began in 1943 when he entered the United States Naval Academy. His distinguished naval career saw him serve across both the Atlantic and Pacific fleets, earning accolades as a decorated lieutenant and joining the prestigious nuclear submarine program. Elected as Georgia's state senator and 76th governor, President Carter eventually ascended to the highest office and was elected as the 39th president of the United States of America in 1977. His historic visit to India in 1978 and the subsequent signing of the Delhi Declaration marked the beginning of a lasting bond between India and the United States, anchored in shared democratic values. President Carter's tireless efforts through the Carter Center and his receipt of the Nobel Peace Prize underscored his unwavering, remarkable commitment to advancing global peace, harmony, and humanitarian causes. We pay tribute to President Carter's unparalleled contributions to the global peace and diplomacy and extend our deepest condolences to his family as well as to the government and the people of the United States of America. The House expresses its deep condolences on the demise of the former Prime Minister of India, Dr. Manmohan Singh, our four colleagues, and former President of the United States of America, Mr. James Earl Carter Jr. The House will now observe silence as a mark of respect to the memory of the departed. Secretary General will convey to the members of the bereaved families our sense of profound sorrow and deep sympathy. One second. Nothing is going on to go. Please, bear with me. I have to inform members that Sri V. Vijay Sai Reddy, member representing the state of Andhra Pradesh, personally submitted a letter dated the 25th January 2025, resigning his seat in the Rajya Sabha. I have accepted his resignation with effect from the said date. Papers to be laid on the table. Secretary General.
Sir, with your kind permission, I rise to lay on the table a statement in English and Hindi showing the bills passed by the Houses of Parliament during the 266th session of Rajya Sabha and assented to by the President.
Shrimati Nirmala Sitharaman.
Sir, with your permission, I rise to lay on the table a copy in English and Hindi of the Economic Survey 24-25 along with the statistical appendix. Thank you.
The House stands adjourned to meet 1 hour after the presentation of the Union Budget 2025-26 in Lok Sabha on Saturday, February 1, 2025.
Deputy Finance Minister presents the Union Budget in the Lok Sabha. Now you can listen to the speech in your own language.
Honorable Speaker,
Understand how this budget aims to meet aspirations, empower the youth and shape India's future. Because every budget decision impacts your life. Budget will define India's growth and progress. Watch it live on Sansad TV's YouTube channel on 1st February 11 a.m. in English, Hindi and other Indian languages. The goods and services tax subsumes both central and state level taxation. The entire element of tax borne by a good or a service will be represented by the GST paid on it. At present, GST is imposed in 4 slabs of 5%, 12%, 18% and 28%. जब लोकसभा में वित्त मंत्री बजट पेश करेंगी, तब उनका बजट भाषण आप सुन पाएंगे आपकी अपनी भाषा में।
Honorable Speaker,
समझ पाएंगे देश का बजट कैसे जुड़ेगा आपके सपनों से, क्योंकि बजट के हर फैसले का असर होता है सीधा आपकी जिंदगी पर। बजट तय करेगा देश के विकास की दिशा और प्रगति की राह। संसद टीवी के YouTube चैनल पर देखिए बजट का सीधा प्रसारण 1 फरवरी सुबह 11 बजे से अंग्रेजी और हिंदी के साथ साथ अन्य भारतीय भाषाओं में भी।
ॐ नमो गङ्गायै विश्वरूपिणी नारायणी नमो नमः। महाकुंभ है, 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 महाकुंभ है। कण कण शिव शिव शंभु शंभु है, महाकुंभ है, महाकुंभ है, महाकुंभ है, महाकुंभ है। राम त्रिवेणी शंभु शंभु है, महाकुंभ 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 है। कण कण शिव शिव शंभु शंभु है, महाकुंभ है। राम त्रिवेणी शंभु शंभु है, महाकुंभ है। भक्तजनों ने घूम के गाया, महापर्व है। संतों ने जय घोष लगाया, कण कण शिव शिव शंभु शंभु है, शंभु शंभु है, शंभु शंभु है। राम त्रिवेणी शंभु शंभु है, शंभु शंभु है। महाकुंभ है, महाकुंभ है, महाकुंभ है, महाकुंभ है, महाकुंभ है, महाकुंभ है, महाकुंभ है। संचालित जो स्वयं ही होता ये वो यंत्र है, देवगणों का इस धरती को देव मंत्र है। चिट्ठी है ना तार है, मेरा मिला ये अपार है, पुण्य का परिणाम है, मोक्ष का ये द्वार है। शिव शिव शंभु शंभु है, शंभु है, शंभु 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 शंभु है। महाकुंभ है, महाकुंभ है, महाकुंभ है, महाकुंभ है, महाकुंभ है, महाकुंभ है, महाकुंभ है। संत अखाड़े साधु जोगी और तपस्वी एक साथ सब लगा रहे संगत में डुबकी। बाबा जोगी बांट रहे जन मन को शुद्धि, एक जगह आ बैठी है भक्ति और शक्ति। कण कण शिव शिव शंभु शंभु है, शंभु शंभु है, शंभु शंभु है, धाम त्रिवेणी शंभु शंभु है, शंभु शंभु है। महाकुंभ है, महाकुंभ है, महाकुंभ है, महाकुंभ है, महाकुंभ है, महाकुंभ है, महाकुंभ है।
What is Finance Bill? It contains the government's proposals for levying new taxes and modifying the existing tax structure, or even continuing the existing one beyond the period approved by Parliament. It is submitted to Parliament along with the budget. जब लोकसभा में वित्त मंत्री बजट पेश करेंगी, तब उनका बजट भाषण आप सुन पाएंगे आपकी अपनी भाषा में।
Honorable Speaker,
समझ पाएंगे देश का बजट कैसे जुड़ेगा आपके सपनों से, क्योंकि बजट के हर फैसले का असर होता है सीधा आपकी जिंदगी पर। बजट तय करेगा देश के विकास की दिशा और प्रगति की राह। संसद टीवी के YouTube चैनल पर देखिए बजट का सीधा प्रसारण 1 फरवरी सुबह 11 बजे से, अंग्रेजी और हिंदी के साथ साथ अन्य भारतीय भाषाओं में भी। What is direct tax? These are taxes where the burden falls on the person on whom it is levied. These are largely taxes on income or wealth. Income tax on corporates and individuals, and securities transaction tax are direct taxes. When the Finance Minister presents the Union Budget in the Lok Sabha, now you can listen to the speech in your own language.
Honorable Speaker,
Understand how this budget aims to meet aspirations, empower the youth, and shape India's future. Because every budget decision impacts your life. Budget will define India's growth and progress. Watch it live on Sansad TV's YouTube channel on 1st February 11 a.m. in English, Hindi and other Indian languages. What is indirect tax? In the case of indirect tax, the burden of tax can be shifted by the taxpayer to someone else. Indirect tax has the effect of raising the price of the products on which they are imposed. Customs duty, central excise, service tax, and value-added tax are examples of indirect tax. What is Finance Bill? It contains the government's proposals for levying new taxes and modifying the existing tax structure, or even continuing the existing one beyond the period approved by Parliament. It is submitted to Parliament along with the budget.
India's infrastructure serves as the backbone of its economic aspirations, from mega highways to bustling ports, and from state-of-the-art metro systems to thriving urban landscapes. India is shaping the future, brick by brick, project by project. Namaskar and welcome to Sansad TV. I'm your host, Rajiv Kumar Singh. We are presenting a special series on the Union Budget 2025-26. In this episode, we will delve into the achievements across the vast spectrum of infrastructure development and explore the expectations of the stakeholders connected to this critical sector. We are calling our program Infrastructure, Building India, Bridging Dreams. India's journey of infrastructure development has been a story of resilience, vision, and transformation. Over the years, it has evolved into a robust network supporting 1.4 billion dreams. FY 2024-25 marked yet another milestone in India's infrastructure journey. With visionary initiatives like Gati Shakti and the National Infrastructure Pipeline, the government continues to transform bold ideas into tangible progress.
Infrastructure investment by central government. Significant investment the central government has made over the years in building and improving infrastructure has had a strong multiplier effect on the economy. We will endeavor to maintain strong fiscal support for infrastructure over the next 5 years in conjunction with imperatives of other priorities and fiscal consolidation. This year, I have provided 11,11,111 crore rupees for capital expenditure. This would be 3.4% of our GDP.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi has been exhorting the country to race towards a Viksit Bharat by 2047. The Prime Minister understands the need to build world-class infrastructure to attain that goal. Be it PM Gati Shakti, which integrates infrastructure projects for seamless logistics, or the National Infrastructure Pipeline, a roadmap for investment in critical sectors, and even for that matter, Smart Cities Mission, an urban renewable and technological innovation. These programs are not just about building roads, railways, and ports. They are about creating opportunities, connecting aspirations, and ensuring that no one is left behind in this transformative journey.
कभी भारत में गाड़ियां न खरीदने का एक कारण अच्छी सड़कों, चौड़ी सड़कों का अभाव भी था। अब ये स्थिति भी बदल रही है। ईज ऑफ ट्रैवल आज भारत की बड़ी प्राथमिकता है। पिछले वर्ष के बजट में इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर के निर्माण के लिए 11 लाख करोड़ रुपए से अधिक रखे गए थे। आज भारत में मल्टी लेन हाईवे का, एक्सप्रेसवे का जाल बिछ रहा है। पीएम गति शक्ति नेशनल मास्टर प्लान से मल्टीमोडल कनेक्टिविटी को गति मिल रही है। इससे लॉजिस्टिक कॉस्ट कम हो रही है। नेशनल लॉजिस्टिक पॉलिसी की वजह से भारत दुनिया में सबसे कॉम्पिटिटिव लॉजिस्टिक कॉस्ट वाला देश होने वाला है।
If we talk about FY 2024-25, it was a year that redefined India's infrastructure landscape and set the stage for an even brighter future, taking India on a journey of progress, promise, and potential. From bustling highways to cutting-edge metro stations, from renewable energy hubs to state-of-the-art logistics centers, the year 2024-25 has been nothing short of a milestone for India's infrastructure journey. The Bharatmala Pariyojana continues to reshape India's road network. This year saw the completion of major expressways, connecting remote regions and reducing travel times dramatically. Bharatmala Pariyojana was approved by the Government of India in 2017, covering a length of 34,800 kilometers to improve connectivity and reduce logistic costs in the country. As on 31st of October 2024, projects covering a total length of 26,425 kilometers have been awarded and 18,714 kilometers have been constructed. In FY 24-25 itself, till December 31st, 2024, the National Highways Authorities of India, NHAI, has awarded highways covering 3,100 kilometers, while 5,853 kilometers of highways have been constructed. The NHAI has incurred an expenditure of rupees 4.72 lakh crore up to 30th November 2024 for the Bharatmala Pariyojana. The National Highways network has grown by 60% after PM Modi assumed office in 2014, rising from 91,287 kilometers to 1,46,195 kilometers. In the meanwhile, the national high-speed corridors have increased from 93 kilometers in 2014 to 2,474 kilometers. Ministry of Road Transport and Highways has planned a network of 35 multimodal logistics parks to be developed as part of Bharatmala Pariyojana. The essence of all-weather road connectivity was clearly established recently while the Prime Minister inaugurated the Sonmarg Tunnel in Jammu and Kashmir.
साथियों, आज मैं एक बड़ी सौगात लेकर आपके एक सेवक के रूप में आपके बीच आया हूं। कुछ दिन पहले मुझे जम्मू में, और जैसा मुख्यमंत्री जी ने बताया 15 दिन पहले ही आपके अपने रेल डिवीजन का शिलान्यास करने का अवसर मिला था। ये आपकी बहुत पुरानी डिमांड थी। आज मुझे सोनमर्ग टनल देश को, आपको सौंपने का मौका मिला है। यानी जम्मू कश्मीर की, लद्दाख की एक और बहुत पुरानी डिमांड आज पूरी हुई है।
ये टनल बनने के कारण विशेष रूप से श्रीनगर से लद्दाख लेह का जो मार्ग है, अनेक बार 5-5, 6-6 महीने ये पूरी तरह रोड बंद रहती है। जीवन आवश्यक चीजें लोगों को नहीं मिलती है, गैस नहीं मिलता, पेट्रोल नहीं मिलता, यहाँ अनेक चीजें स्टोर करनी पड़ती है। आज हमारी सोनमर्ग टनल पूरी हो रही है। ये 6.5 किलोमीटर है, 2700 करोड़ रुपए की, और इसी के साथ जोड़कर हम जोजिला टनल बना रहे हैं जो 14 किलोमीटर है और 18 किलोमीटर उसका अप्रोच रोड है और उसकी कीमत 6,800 करोड़ रुपए है। प्रधानमंत्री जी, मुझे ये बताते हुए खुशी हो रही है कि इसका जब 5वीं बार हमने जब टेंडर निकाला था तब इसकी कीमत हमने 12,000 करोड़ सरकार ने अधिकृत रूप से तय की थी। ये टनल अब हम केवल 6,800 करोड़ रुपए में करने का कार्य पूरा करने जा रहे हैं, जिसमें 5,000 करोड़ की लगभग बचत है। एक साल हमने टेक्नोलॉजी से लेकर अनेक चीजों पर अध्ययन किया और आशिया की सबसे ऊंचाई में बन रही ये टनल है और इससे बनने से श्रीनगर और लेह के बीच का समय करीब 3.5 घंटे कम होगा और निश्चित रूप से ऑल सीजन रोड होकर इस जनता को आपने दी हुई जो भेंट है, ये ऑल सीजन कनेक्टिविटी के कारण इनका जीवन बहुत ही अच्छी तरीके से सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट के साथ विकसित होगा। इसका मुझे बहुत बहुत आनंद है।
A total of 1,62,742 habitations have been provided connectivity since inception of the Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana (PMGSY). 242 habitations have been provided all-weather road connectivity in the year 2024 itself. Total size of projects sanctioned under all verticals of PMGSY increased to 8,28,791 km road length and 11,955 bridges. During year 2024, road length of 21,854 km and 427 bridges have been sanctioned under all verticals of PMGSY. Urban mobility took a leap forward as metro rail networks expanded in cities like Bengaluru, Pune, and Kanpur, bringing world-class public transport to the doorstep of millions. The Indian Railways achieved historic milestones in 2024-25, with over 90% of the network now electrified, reducing carbon emissions and operational costs. Vande Bharat trains continue to redefine passenger experience with new routes, bringing high-speed travel to more regions. The establishment of logistics hubs has further strengthened India's freight efficiency, making it a global leader in rail-based logistics. In the year 2024, Indian Railways had achieved 6,450 km of complete track renewal, 8,550 turnout renewals, and raised speeds to 130 km per hour over 2,000 km. Indian Railways electrified 3,210 route kilometer in 2024, extending the electrified broad gauge network to 97% with renewable energy capacity reaching 2014 megawatt. A record 136 Vande Bharat trains and the first Namo Bharat Rapid Rail were introduced, alongside 21,513 special train trips during peak seasons. Indian Railways loaded 1,473 metric tons of freight in 2024, achieving a 3.86% growth, with Eastern Dedicated Freight Corridor and Western Dedicated Freight Corridor facilitating over 72,000 train runs. Work started on 1,198 stations out of 1,337 stations under Amrit Bharat Station Scheme. 10,000 locos are being equipped with Kavach safety technology. 9,000 technicians have been trained and bids invited for 15,000 RKM. Indian Railways heritage sites, including 80 stations and 78 structures, were digitized, while festivals like Ghoom boosted tourism. Indian Railways is a cornerstone of India's aspirations to emerge as a developed nation in the next 2 decades, serving as a critical enabler of economic growth and connectivity. Under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, the government has substantially increased capital expenditure on railways, prioritizing the creation of faster, safer, and more efficient networks. This strategic push includes investments in modernizing infrastructure, introducing high-speed rail projects, upgrading existing lines, and improving passenger amenities. Budget 2025-26 is anticipated to further boost allocations for railways with a strong focus on network expansion and the integration of advanced technologies to meet the demand of rapidly growing economy.
रेलवे में जो ट्रैक सिस्टम है बहुत ही इम्पोर्टेंट सिस्टम होता है और बहुत ही कॉम्प्लेक्स सिस्टम होता है. उसके सभी पैरामीटर्स को ठीक से अगर मेजर कर पाए तो रेलवे की सेफ्टी काफ़ी बढ़ जाती है, क्योंकि ढंग से अगर मेजरमेंट है तो उस केस में बहुत प्रॉपरली उसकी मेंटेनेंस का एक प्रोटोकॉल बनता है. इसी जो माननीय प्रधानमंत्री श्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी का इसीलिए हमेशा आग्रह रहता है कि रेलवे में और जीवन के हर क्षेत्र में टेक्नोलॉजी को आगे लेके आए, इनोवेशंस, नवाचार आगे लाए, नए तरीके के प्रयोग करें. तो उसी कड़ी में 3 ITMS मशीनों का रेलवे में डिप्लॉयमेंट हुआ था करीब 1.5 साल 2 साल पहले, और अभी तक उसका एक्सपीरियंस बहुत अच्छा आया है. ये मशीनें रेलवे ट्रैक का बहुत ही डिटेल्ड मेजरमेंट देती है, बहुत ही एक्यूरेट मेजरमेंट देती है. नीचे इस मशीन के नीचे जैसा आपने देखा लाइडार सिस्टम्स लगे हुए हैं और बहुत ही हाई रेजोल्यूशन के कैमरास लगे हुए हैं और लीनियर स्कैनिंग के इक्विपमेंट लगे हुए हैं. तो लीनियर स्कैनिंग करके कहीं पर भी कोई क्लिप मिसिंग हो अगर, या 2 स्लीपर्स के बीच में अगर गैप कम ज़्यादा हो, अगर कोई स्लीपर का कोई पैरामीटर कमज़ोर हो, ट्रैक के बीच में जो गैप होना चाहिए वो अगर कम हो या ज़्यादा हो, अगर आसपास कोई भी ऐसी चीज़ हो जो कि रेल के साथ मतलब ट्रेन के साथ ऑब्स्ट्रक्शन कर सकती है, उसका मेजरमेंट. तो एक तरीके से पटरियों का पूरा हेल्थ चेकअप इस मशीन से होता है.
The sustained investment underscores the government's commitment to transforming Indian railways into a world-class transportation system that drives development, enhances regional connectivity, and supports India's vision of a prosperous future. India's civil aviation infrastructure saw remarkable growth in 2024, with new airports under the Udan scheme boosting regional connectivity. Major hubs like Delhi and Bengaluru expanded capacity, while greenfield projects like Navi Mumbai Airport and Noida International Airport progressed rapidly. Enhanced air traffic management, modern terminals, and public-private partnerships supported India's vision of becoming a global aviation leader. India's civil aviation sector reflects a dynamic transformation, with a growing network of airports and enhanced connectivity, making air travel more accessible to millions across the nation. The expansion of India's airline fleet and infrastructure highlights the nation's rise as a global aviation hub, offering seamless travel experiences both domestically and internationally. The number of operational airports in the country has doubled from 74 in 2014 to 157 in 2024, and the aim is to increase this number to 350 to 400 by 2047. The domestic air passengers have more than doubled in the past decade, with Indian Airlines significantly expanding their fleets. The Udan scheme is connecting India with 619 routes and 88 operational airports. India's domestic air traffic is expanding rapidly, growing at a rate of 12% per year. India has also seen a 10% increase in cargo traffic, cementing its role as a vital hub in global logistics, with new cargo terminals and air freight routes strengthening its international trade position. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's vision for housing for all revolves around ensuring affordable and dignified housing for every Indian family, especially the underprivileged. His flagship initiative, Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, aims to provide Pakka houses with basic amenities to all Indian families. The scheme focuses on inclusivity, addressing urban and rural housing needs with tailored approaches under PMAY Urban and PMAY Grameen. The scheme provides subsidies and financial support comes up with technology-driven solutions, empowers women and marginalized groups, and is sustainability-driven with focus on eco-friendly housing, which is ultimately to build a foundation for a self-reliant India. The Union Cabinet approved the extension of Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Gramin on 9th of August 2024 to construct additional 2 crore rural houses during FY 2024-25 to FY 2028-29 to meet the arising need of housing due to increase in number of families. As on 30th December 2024, the cumulative target of 3.33 crore houses have been allotted to the states, UTs, out of which 3.22 crore houses have been sanctioned and 2.68 crore houses have been completed. India's energy infrastructure is rapidly transforming to ensure a sustainable future. With initiatives like renewable energy expansion, solar parks, and the International Solar Alliance, India is targeting 500 gigawatt of non-fossil fuel capacity by 2030. Investments in smart grids, EV charging, and rural electrification are powering inclusive growth and environmental stewardship. India's renewable energy sector continued its upward trajectory. The addition of large-scale solar and wind projects brought the nation closer to achieving its renewable energy goals. As of December 2024, India's total renewable energy installed capacity has reached 209.44 gigawatt, marking an impressive 15.84% increase compared to 180.80 gigawatt in December 2023. The total capacity added during 2024 amounted to 28.64 gigawatt, representing a significant year-on-year increase of 119.46% compared to 13.05 gigawatt added in 2023. In 2024, solar power spearheaded this growth with the addition of 24.54 gigawatt, reflecting a 33.47% rise in its cumulative installed capacity from 73.32 gigawatt in 2023 to 97.86 gigawatt in 2024. Wind energy also contributed to this expansion, with an additional 3.42 gigawatt installed in 2024, increasing the total wind capacity to 48.16 gigawatt, a growth of 7.64% from 2023. India's achievements in the sphere reflects its dedication to fulfill its climate commitments while strengthening energy security. These impressive figures underscore the Government of India's continued efforts to scale up renewable energy capacity in India.
साथियों, ग्लोबल वार्मिंग की, क्लाइमेट की चुनौती से निपटने के लिए हमें सोलर पावर को, अल्टरनेटिव फ्यूल को लगातार प्रमोट करते रहना है। भारत ने अपनी G20 प्रेसिडेंसी के दौरान ग्रीन फ्यूचर पर बहुत जोर दिया है। आज भारत में ईवी के साथ ही सोलर पावर को लेकर भी बहुत बड़े लेवल पर काम चल रहा है। पीएम सूर्यघर मुफ्त बिजली स्कीम से रूफटॉप सोलर का एक बड़ा मिशन चल रहा है। ऐसे में इस सेक्टर में भी बैटरी की स्टोरेज सिस्टम की डिमांड लगातार बढ़ने वाली है। सरकार ने एडवांस केमिस्ट्री सेल बैटरी स्टोरेज को बढ़ावा देने के लिए 18,000 करोड़ रुपए की पीएलआई स्कीम शुरू की है। यानी इस सेक्टर में बड़े इन्वेस्टमेंट का आपके लिए ये सही समय है। मैं देश के ज्यादा से ज्यादा नौजवानों को भी एनर्जी स्टोरेज सेक्टर में स्टार्टअप्स के लिए इनवाइट करूंगा। हमें ऐसे इनोवेशंस पर काम करना है जो भारत में ही मौजूद मटेरियल से बैटरी बना सके, स्टोरेज सिस्टम बना सके, इसको लेकर देश में काफी काम हो भी रहा है, लेकिन इसको मिशन मोड पर आगे बढ़ाना जरूरी है।
In 2024, India made significant strides in enhancing its healthcare infrastructure, reflecting a commitment to improving public health services nationwide. The government expanded its healthcare program to provide citizens aged 70 and above with annual medical insurance coverage of rupees 5 lakh, benefiting an additional 60 million people. Till the 10th of December 2024, a total of 1,75,418 Ayushman Arogya Mandirs have been established and operationalized by transforming existing sub-health centers and primary health centers in rural and urban areas. In terms of infrastructure, as of March 31st, 2023, India had a total of 1,69,615 sub-centers, 31,882 primary health centers, 6,359 community health centers, 1,340 sub-divisional district hospitals, 714 district hospitals, and 362 medical colleges, serving both rural and urban areas. These facilities collectively provided 8,18,661 beds across the country. The upward trend in health infrastructure underscores the government's dedication to bolstering healthcare services in the country. However, despite these advancements, challenges like recommended availability of 2 beds per 1,000 population and doctor-to-population ratio of only 8 certified medical practitioners available per 1 lakh individual remain as concerns. India's Sagarmala program, initiated in 2015, aims to promote port-led development by harnessing the country's extensive coastline and strategic maritime position. As of 2024, the initiative has made substantial progress across various pillars. The Sagarmala program encompasses 839 projects with an estimated investment of approximately 5.8 lakh crore, targeted for completion by 2035. Out of these, 262 projects worth rupees 1.4 lakh crore have been completed, while the remaining projects are at various stages of implementation and development. Significant efforts have been directed towards modernizing existing ports and developing new ones.
Ecosystem we have already developed, but in the near future, like whoever are in the front runners in the shipbuilding in the world, we want to also associate with them. And by creating Maritime Development Fund, we want to give incentive to the shipbuilders tomorrow. And also for this ground level preparation, we have already started creating kind of clusters for shipbuilding and ship repairs across the country. So this is coming up firstly. So that's the way we have the vision to make India one of the leaders in the shipbuildings.
India's first offshore deep-sea port, the Vadhavan port in Maharashtra, commenced construction on August 30th, 2024. This port is poised to become the country's second mother port, enhancing capacity for ultra-large container vessels. To improve connectivity between ports and domestic production and consumption centers, 279 projects have been identified. These include the development of road and rail networks, pipelines, and multimodal logistics parks. As of 2024, 83 projects have been completed, adding 1,675 kilometers of rail connectivity and 500 kilometers of road connectivity, thereby reducing logistics costs and transit times. To promote sustainable and cost-effective transportation, 231 projects have been identified to enhance coastal shipping and inland waterways. These projects aim to shift cargo movement from road and rail to waterways, reducing congestion and environmental impact. As of 2024, multiple projects have been completed, facilitating increased cargo traffic through these modes. The Sagarmala program has made significant progress in transforming India's waterways and ports infrastructure. The completion of numerous projects across various pillars highlights a comprehensive approach to port-led development, aiming to reduce logistics costs, boost industrial growth, and enhance the livelihoods of coastal communities. As India strides ahead on the path of development, 2024 has proven to be a landmark year in transforming the nation's infrastructure landscape, be it through modernized ports, expanded railways, enhanced highways, or upgraded healthcare facilities. These achievements not only reflect the country's ambition, but also the commitment to build a stronger, more connected, and inclusive future. As India looks towards Budget 2025-26, the nation awaits with optimism, hoping for even greater investments and visionary policies to sustain the momentum of growth. Ultimately, it will be the policies adopted that will pave the way for a new era of growth, making India not just a global economic powerhouse, but a model of innovation and resilience for the world. Thank you for joining us on this journey of transformation. Until next time, stay inspired by the story of India, a nation
go as follows. First, the Chief Economic Advisor will give a presentation on the key narratives from the Economic Survey 24-25, followed by question and answer session. Over to Chief Economic Advisor, Sri V. Anant Nageshwaran ji.
Thank you and good afternoon, everybody. Although we are almost at the end of the first month of the current calendar year, there are still 11 more months to go. I wish you all a very happy and healthy 2025, and I hope you had a good first month already. So we will go into the presentation on what the Economic Survey 24-25 is about. This is a presentation on the Economic Survey contents rather than on the state of the economy per se, although which will be there at towards the end of the presentation as well. The structure of today's presentation, we will cover the following issues: the changing global landscape and how India can rise the game for the new playing field. And in that segment, We will cover 4 areas, as you can see here: reform through deregulation, augmenting internal capacities for growth, the private sector's role in nation building, the energy transition the Indian way, state of the economy regaining momentum, and the growth outlook for FY26. The changing global landscape, we did cover that in the last survey as well. 2024 was the year of elections across the world. And most of us know that both qualitatively and in terms of quantitative dimensions, the world that existed between 1980, and you can choose the endpoint, some people would say 2008 or 2012, 16, etc. Roughly about 3 decades was the peak of globalization, hyper-globalization. As you can see in the statistics here, global exports went from 15% plus to 25%. Global FDI flows went from 0.5% of GDP to 3.75% of GDP. Global GDP itself rose 6 times in current prices. Extreme poverty came down because of faster growth in China and India. Internet penetration went from almost nothing to 23% as a share of world population. During this period, applied tariff rates across the world came down and the trade to GDP share went up. But clearly, you all know very well more than we do that this period has kind of ended. Even if we are not reversing very actively, we no longer are advancing along these dimensions. New import restrictions in every year were of the order of about 3,000 restrictions imposed by countries across the world. They have jumped to about 5,000 restrictions in the last 4 years. And the key reason that is cited by countries in imposing restrictions is strategic competitiveness. I think that is the important theme that we have to internalize as a country, both in the policy space and in the private sector space. There is strategic competitiveness, so therefore, efficiency considerations have given way to resilience and supply side security considerations. The value of trade covered under the new import restrictions was as low as $170 billion in 2014-15. Now it's more than $1 trillion, $1.3 trillion. So effectively, I think both import-export and investment flows are being looked at through the prism of strategic competition. And that is a new world which may be with us for quite some time to come, and therefore we need to get used to operating in this space. As a result, world FDI net inflows as a percentage of GDP has come down from around 5% in the first decade to around 1% of GDP. And world exports as a share of world GDP peaked, even though it may not have come down as much as investment flows have come down. Clearly, it is on a declining trend compared to the ascending trend we saw towards the end of the last millennium and in the first decade. One of the outcomes of the globalization era was also the rise of China as a manufacturing power. India also rose as a power in global services. So what has happened in the last 25, 30 years, and it is continuing even now, is in several high-tech, medium-tech areas, the presence of China is pervasive and dominant. And the manufacturing as a share of world gross output, China's share will probably be higher than the combined share of the next 10 countries. It gives them a lot of strategic levers and advantage in several areas, as we will see later in some other dimensions as well. This is an important development along with globalization in the last 40 years. Now, along with the dominance in manufacturing, in terms of the materials and minerals required for global energy transition, let's first take a look at the solar energy. Global demand in 2010 was, China's share of the global demand was very small. and therefore China's production capacity in those areas was also quite small comparatively. But fast forward 11 years later, while demand has grown even within China, but the production capacity in that country has grown even more than demand, basically giving them an important lever in terms of the source of supply for all ingredients and components related to energy transition. And if you happen to see the September 2024 report of Mr. Mario Draghi on the European competitiveness, the entire 75-page report is full of European concerns about the concentration risk that is there with respect to one country as a source of supply for all critical components and technologies with respect to energy transition and manufacturing, etc. Moving on from solar energy to electric mobility, if you look at the key materials that go into it, copper, lithium, nickel, cobalt, graphite, and the rare earth materials, the dominance, and this is a slide which we have shown you back in July 2024 as well, the dominance of one country is quite clear. And in different stages of production, even if those materials are not mined in one country, the processing happens in a single country. And therefore, whether it is the cell components or battery cells, in fact, the truth is every single panel, solar panel we install, every single electric vehicle that we produce in this country, naturally the dependence on a single source for supply keeps increasing. So that dependence has to be kept in mind in the pace of transition towards renewable energies and also with respect to electric mobility. So this is the global context, that the era of globalization, faster and larger movement of trade and goods and services and investments is behind us. And there is a huge presence of a single country, a phenomena that we have not seen in a very long time, at least since World War II. So given this, naturally, we have to raise the game for a new playing field. The playing field has changed, and the game has to be rely on domestic drivers of growth. So what are those domestic drivers of growth? That is what is part 2 about. Just to recap, we do have a goal, a legitimate economic and social aspiration to become a developed country by 2047. The last economic survey broke it down into multiple components, generating about 80 lakh jobs per year, increasing our share of manufacturing in GDP, plugging Indian businesses into global value chains, and creating a viable small, medium enterprise sector, which in the German language is called the Mittelstand. Because countries that basically became powerhouses in manufacturing had succeeded in creating a viable small medium enterprise sector. Therefore, our goal with respect to manufacturing is inextricably tied to the success of being able to raise the share of SME enterprises as well. Therefore, what is the action? The action is we have to raise our game on domestic growth. And how do we do that? There are 4 dimensions to it. One is deregulation for growth, augmenting internal capacities for growth, the role of the private sector in nation building, and doing energy transition the Indian way. First, we start with the deregulation for growth. Now, when we talk of deregulation, it is not even big ticket deregulation or dismantling of the licensing era, which happened in 1991 and pursued by governments over the last 30 plus years. We are talking about the nuts and bolts or the plumbing of deregulation, which particularly affect enterprises, be they in services or be they in manufacturing, which affect them in terms of the time and the resource bandwidth that they have. And these are related to local level rules, laws, and regulations. So this is the deregulation exercise, which will probably not be a news story in the front pages, but that kind of deregulation at the local and the state government level have to happen pervasively for us not only to boost MSMEs, to boost manufacturing, but also to lift the potential GDP growth in the country. And this applies in the areas of labor, and even in the education sector as well. We'll share with you a few examples. These are the areas where I think the regulations that are there today affect the day-to-day activities of businesses that don't have the kind of bandwidth which large enterprises have. Whether it is in land, building and construction, utilities, logistics, and there are sector-specific deregulation areas, and you can see more of them in Chapter 5 and also across other chapters in the economic survey. In general, we are obviously in the presentation, I can't go into all the issues which are there in the chapter. Just to illustrate, compliance costs make it cheaper to run a 150 worker factory than one 300 worker factory, whereas it should be the other way around. Regulations also disproportionately affect small businesses. If you look at the building restrictions, the setbacks to be allowed on all the 4 sides of a building, the floor area ratio restrictions, parking regulations, etc., take away much of the land available at the ground floor level for businesses. So actually manufacturing can start only from the first floor onwards in many small enterprises, both in urban and rural India, if they fully comply with the letter and spirit of these regulations. Naturally, that raises the fixed cost of doing business, and naturally, it also disincentivizes more hiring. So deregulation is not just about ease of doing business, it is a pathway to employment generation. And naturally, we also know that many states impose a high markup on electricity costs supplied to businesses compared to other non-businesses. And whereas in countries like Vietnam and Bangladesh, particularly in Vietnam, which we look up to, it is the other way around in terms of being our next important competitive country. They have the opposite problem, which is that the cost of electricity supplied to industries is on the lowest side there compared to what we have in India. And by the way, this is not just a theoretical exercise. We have done, and you will see more of it in Chapter 7, we looked at those states which have progressed a lot on business reform action plan, and lo and behold, those states have a much higher level of industrial activity. So there is a positive correlation between BRAP and the level of industrial activity that is there in these states. Moving on from industry to employment-related areas where deregulation can be pursued, in general, we do specify the number of hours workers can work daily and weekly. Every country has it. But the problem is we have restrictions that this shall be adhered to week after week after week, whereas other countries give flexibility to the enterprises to be able to achieve this over a longer period, 3 months or 6 months. Your overall working hours cannot exceed this. But in a given week, there could be more or less work depending on demand surges. So that flexibility is missing. The same thing with respect to Factories Act on overtime working hours as well. The stipulated overtime hours are lower than competing nations, even though the overtime wages are higher in India on paper. The hours that people can be asked to work overtime is limited, and this is something that the workers and the management can negotiate between themselves depending on order flows and so on and so forth. Moving on to higher education in particular, where I think market forces can play a much better role in ensuring quality outcomes. The University Grants Commission specifies minimum credits for various course categories and in what sequence as well. These aspects could be entrusted to the institutions themselves. And the institutions must remain free to remain flexible with their coursework. This will allow them to adapt to changing market demands, and we should basically trust the faculty and students to find solutions to these problems. These are all areas where we don't have to micromanage, and that is something this is just examples of deregulation we can undertake in industry, employment, and education. Moving on to Part B of domestic drivers of growth, this is to continue to do the work we have been doing in the last 10 years on augmenting internal capacities for growth. And in July 2024, in agriculture, we devoted a lot of time in both Chapter 5 on the medium-term outlook on how agriculture can be freed in terms of empowering farmers to be able to produce the maximum value and raise productivity. And we deliberately call it the sector of the future because there is enough scope to raise the contribution of agriculture by 0.75% to 1% in terms of GDP growth by empowering farmers, as we wrote in the last July survey. And there are examples which we have cited in this survey as well from different states, and also both in terms of land pooling and also in terms of irrigation potential, which we have done quite well in the last 8 years. The area under micro irrigation has gone up by 3 times, and that can actually be an important factor. So bringing more area under irrigation, land pooling, and giving farmers the freedom to sell wherever, whenever, to whomsoever, at whatever prices, while undertaking different intervention mechanisms to take care of the demand side. That is the right combination that can unlock up to 1% of incremental growth from the agriculture sector. And given our size and given the impact climate change will have on some other nations in Africa and Asia, this will also give India a huge diplomatic and strategic leverage if we are able to become the breadbasket for many countries around the world. So this sector is not something that countries do well in their early stage of development, but given the change in globalization and given climate change, this sector can be a sector for the future as well. And as you see here on the left side, allied sectors in agriculture have been able to grow at much faster rate than the mainstream crops and food grains. So therein lies the clue as to what are all the elements from those areas which can be applied to traditional crop areas that will lift the overall growth rate of the agriculture sector. In terms of infrastructure development, we have done quite well in the last 10 years in particular, whether in terms of introducing new trains, new airports. We're contributing to reduced turnaround time in ports, coming down from 48 hours to 30 hours in the last couple of years, and capacity additions in the power sector, falling data cost, and expansion in telecom infrastructure. These are some of the illustrations we have picked up for highlighting here, but there are more details in Chapter 6. We also, last time itself, we wrote about the turnaround logistics costs also have come down in the country, and turnaround time in toll booths, etc., and road transport are all contributing to higher production and distribution efficiency in the country. Particularly with respect to the urban India, cities declared open defecation free have gone from 15% to saturation coverage, and household latrines constructed, public toilets constructed, and waste processed as a percentage of waste generated. There is tangible and substantial progress in many of these dimensions. On the right side, what you see is that PM Awas Yojana urban and also Amrut in terms of water coverage, 70% tap water and 62% sewage coverage, and also the expansion of metro rail system. The reason we put it up here is that public transportation has to play a much bigger role in our energy transition and energy demand going forward, much more than in fact private mobility solutions, including e-mobility. Public transportation holds the key, and that is why not only we have 1,000 kilometers operational, we have equally another 1,000 kilometers that are underway. So this will, if we can integrate the public transportation network, our carbon emissions and also cleaner air and road congestion, all these dimensions will be addressed by utilizing public transportation infrastructure more efficiently. In terms of rural economy, the Swachh Bharat mission, 11.8 crore toilets in villages. Mission Amrit Sarovar. Again, if you look at the chapter on in agriculture and in industry, we talk about the importance of rejuvenating water bodies in contributing to the entire community development rather than purely providing water sufficiency. The National Health Mission, Sansad Adarsh Gram Yojana, empowering members of parliament to adopt villages and contributing to village development. Jal Jeevan Mission, 12.2 crore households provided, and Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Grameen, 2.7 crore houses completed. Now, in terms of infrastructure, it is not enough to talk only about the physical infrastructure. We have done quite well with respect to at the general government level, not just the union government. The overall expenditure has gone up from 10.4 lakh crores across the country between center and states to 25.7 lakh crores on social services, primarily health, education, etc. And this is a growth rate of more than this is the multiple of about 2.5 times in the last 7 years. And in terms of the building blocks for better education, the foundational literacy and numeracy, central and state government initiatives are covered. One is the Nipun Bharat initiative, the mission to ensure that every child attains foundational literacy and numeracy by the end of grade 3 by 2026. Some of the specific examples are also covered in the economic survey. Initiatives and interventions in states like Bihar and Gujarat are also given adequate coverage in Chapter 11 of the economic survey. Apart from that, we also highlighted several private sector not-for-profit initiatives in these dimensions, whether with respect to learning or social and emotional learning, which are not typically covered in classroom textbook learning. All the private sector initiatives or not-for-profit initiatives that can be replicated and scaled up, and specific state-level initiatives that are working well, which can also be considered as possible models to be adopted elsewhere. We have covered them in great detail in Chapter 11. The good news is that the proof of the pudding is there in the data. The latest annual State of Education report for 2024, which Pratham brought out a couple of days ago, the proportion of Standard 3 children in government schools who can read up to Standard 2 has gone up from 16.3% to 23.4%. And in middle school, major improvements in basic reading and arithmetic seen in all grades, and the progress at the high school level, more than 75% can do basic digital tasks. And the same report also covers the availability of infrastructure that facilitates learning in the classroom in terms of midday meal being served, drinking water availability, usable toilets, and usable toilets for girls in particular as well. In all these areas, in the last 6 years, there has been noticeable improvement as well. Skilling initiatives found a prominent place in the last budget presented in July. And many of these initiatives, in fact, it looks as if I have to give you a specific glossary for this slide alone in terms of the number of abbreviations that are being used here. CTS stands for Craftsman Training Scheme in Industrial Training Institutes. PMKVY is Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, and Jan Shikshan Sansthan is JSS, and NSTI is the National Skill Training Institutes. NAPS stands for National Apprenticeship Promotion Scheme, and NCVET stands for National Council for Vocational Education Training. With this glossary out of the way, now we can look at the statistical landmarks and achievements that we have presented to you here in this slide. So in terms of Craftsman Training Scheme, 1.24 crore people have enrolled, and in the Kaushal Vikas Yojana, 1.57 crore people trained, etc. I will refrain from reading out all the statistics out here, but the important point is the industry partnership that is coming up in the apprenticeship promotion scheme and in the internship scheme as well. I think last economic survey spoke about the need for academic, industry and government partnership, and this is an example of that in the skilling space as well. Moving on from physical infrastructure, education and skilling to health, the affordable medicine and immunization program through the Jan Aushadhi Kendras, over 14,000 are operational. Full immunization coverage is happening. Disruptive technologies, including drone technologies, being deployed to provide medicines in remote areas. And also, if you look at the health identity cards, Ayushman Bharat Health IDs, 72.8 crore IDs have been created, and 26.4 crore vaccine doses monitored and administered, and eSanjeevani is serving more than 30 crore patients as well. I'll move on to the next slide. While physical health is clearly manifestly important. What goes beneath the surface in many cases is the importance of mental health, and the Government of India has been cognizant of the importance of maintaining mental health as well. Many initiatives have been taken. The National Mental Health Program, Tele-Manas, which provides consultation over the phone, and there was a Mental Health Care Act leading to the setting up of 47 mental health institutes flowing from the National Mental Health Policy in 2014. And in terms of the Mittelstand, which I spoke about as an important lever or important ingredient of manufacturing, in the PLI schemes for white goods, we have covered a box item on the success of the air conditioners with respect to the PLI. The entire value chain for air conditioners manufacturing in the country is now in place. And particularly with respect to white goods, 43% of the new applicants in the scheme are micro, small and medium enterprises. In terms of payment on time to micro businesses and small businesses, number of invoices financed on trades went up from 4.8 lakhs to 41.2 lakhs in FY24 in the last 4 years. That is a nearly 8 times jump in the number of invoices financed through trades. And the amount financed on trades has also gone up from 11,000 crores to 1.4 lakh crores. And many of you are aware of the Section 43BH, which allows businesses to deduct payments only after they make the payment in the year in which they make the payment to micro, small and medium enterprises rather than on an accrual basis. And MSME cluster development program has improved productivity by 10 to 15%. In this regard, the survey also covers many initiatives taken by different states, from Gujarat to Madhya Pradesh to Rajasthan to Tamil Nadu, etc. We cover initiatives taken by several states for the growing MSME businesses and attracting new businesses which can serve as inspiration for other states as well. Harnessing the power of women entrepreneurs with respect to credit access, skill development, marketing support, and specific support for women-owned enterprises in terms of reserving public sector procurement for women-owned enterprises. So basically the point is, in the first 2 sections of this, in domestic drivers, we have spoken about the importance of deregulation. We have spoken about the importance of continuing with various initiatives that we have looked at in the previous surveys in terms of boosting the productive potential. This is all from the policy space. From there, we move on to the role of the private sector, because naturally for a large economy, private sector plays a very big role. And in terms of the private sector, the specific asks are balanced deployment of capital and labor, curbing ultra-processed foods, fairer distribution of incomes, which is related to the balanced deployment of capital and labor, workplace importance to workplace safety, workplace culture and mental health, and thinking about supply and sourcing from a strategic perspective as well. Investment in R&D. So these are all the dimensions in which the private sector can also raise the game for the new playing field that we are confronted with today. In terms of fairer distribution of incomes, a topic which we brought up last survey as well, if you look at the growth in profitability and the growth in employment expenses, which is a combination of hiring and compensation, there is a huge disparity between the two, which has been highlighted by several private sector players themselves in the last few months. And this happened even as Indian corporate sector profitability hit a 15-year high in March 2024. And some of you may have heard that when in the 1960s, when Henry Ford raised the minimum wages for his car workers, he said, otherwise there will not be enough people to buy the cars the Ford Motors produces. So in some sense, raising wage and salary growth for workers is also a source for aggregate demand for businesses in the medium run as well. So it is both, it is enlightened self-interest rather than being seen only from a moral prism as well. And in terms of balanced deployment of capital and labor, the clear example is the use of artificial intelligence, and we have a special essay on this topic in chapter 13. In July 2024, we spoke about the energy demand management in a special essay on dealing with climate change. This time, the special essay is on the impact of artificial intelligence on employment generation and in general on labor. Deployment of artificial intelligence presents both opportunities and challenges. Past technology revolutions in general, sometimes we all feel that technology eventually generates more jobs than it displaces. That is true. But the key word is eventually. What happens between now and eventually is critical. And that is where I think we need to create supporting institutions, enabling institutions to train them, to prepare them, and academic curriculums have to change, workplace practices have to change, etc. So therefore, technological transitions have not been painless in the past, particularly during the previous 3 industrial revolutions in the Western world, and we need to learn from them, and that is what this chapter covers. And the private sector therefore needs to weigh the benefits of artificial intelligence against the social cost, which may be subterranean in nature and which may surface over a longer period, eventually affecting the environment that is necessary for running businesses smoothly. And therefore, the chapter argues for a careful deployment optimized over a long horizon. This will augment labor and will deliver broad-based social benefits. Of course, one of the considerations, if I may say in a lighter vein, when we wrote this chapter was whether the chapter would become outdated by the time it goes to print, given the kind of fast changes happening in the artificial intelligence space. But the issue that I discussed here is not with respect to the technological developments per se, but also whether the potential and the threat the technology poses for augmenting labor or displacing labor. Those issues are discussed in chapter 13. And where else a private sector can contribute? Compared to several countries, when it comes to R&D spend, 50% of it happens from the government and only 41% happens from business enterprises. Even higher education, academic institutions only contribute 9% compared to other countries. I think this is one area where I think the private sector and people like Mr. Naushad Forbes, etc., have actually written about it. The funding of R&D in India is predominantly from government entities, and it is not for lack of incentives. Specifically, box item 7 in chapter 7 covers the various incentives that the government of India offers in comparison to peer countries, and they are definitely comparable. And R&D in India is primarily driven by business enterprises in many other economies. And whatever R&D happens in the private sector in India is not only low, but is also sectorally concentrated. And that is one area of improvement. Ultra processed foods. It is a 2.5 lakh crore business built on hyper palatability of food items. Misleading advertisements, celebrity endorsements, and missing and obscure labeling on packages targeting consumer behavior. Ultra-processed foods are directly associated with exposure to cancer, respiratory, cardiovascular, and gastrointestinal health outcomes. And poor dietary intake, unfortunately, is also associated with adverse mental health. And most UPF brands target children and adolescents. Therefore, we need to arrive at a quick resolution on the issue pertaining to front of the pack labeling, which has been, happening in fits and starts in this country. And this is not just purely about consumer information and fair disclosure. It has got long-term implications for realizing our demographic dividend and productivity of our youth. Because we initiated the coverage of mental health in a big way in the last survey, and we continue that in this survey as well, and you can find more of it in chapter 11. 4 particular variables have a big implication for mental health. Those who rarely use smartphones, those who are close to their friends and relatives, and those who basically have social connect and physical activity and who consume healthy foods, they have a very high mental score. But if your consumption of ultra-processed foods is frequent, and if your family closeness is not much, and nor do you have enough free time for yourself out in the open, and if you rarely exercise, then your mental well-being score is very low. It is not a theoretical construct, it is an empirical finding across the world, including in India. And lower mental health naturally has a direct correlation with the number of working days and overall productivity as well. So in general, workplace culture, private sector's attitude towards ultra-processed foods, prioritizing medium term over short term, all these considerations will eventually determine whether India's wanted demographic dividend actually materializes or not. And I think this is a very important issue. Rather than, apart from skilling and education, etc., this is not widely discussed, and we feel this is an important area where private sector can contribute a lot. Energy transition the Indian way, which is the topic in the chapter on climate change and adaptation. A well-known French economist, Jean Pisani-Ferry, in the context of Europe, wrote that there is an impossible trinity of net zero. That is, policy cannot be at the same time fiscally sustainable and the economy is competitive without giving up on net zero ambitions. And that is what we call it, the impossible trinity of net zero. On the right side, between fiscal sustainability, net zero goals, and competitiveness of the economy at any given point in time, only two are possible. If you want to pursue net zero and be competitive also in the global economic space, then there has to be a lot of subsidization that has to happen. If you want to be fiscally sustainable, on the other hand, and also be economically competitive, Europe is realizing that net zero goals will become that much more challenging to pursue. Again, the Mario Draghi report on competitiveness has a lot to say on this with respect to Europe, and it applies to developing countries like ours as well. At the same time, if you want to pursue net zero, at the same time be fiscally prudent, then competitiveness will take a big hit as well, because energy costs will go up significantly, as has happened in Europe between pre-COVID and post-COVID. So the net result is that the trade-offs in climate mitigation is such that these days countries are realizing that we need to spend a lot of effort and resources on adaptation. The theme of the chapter on climate this time is how do we maximize our adaptation efforts, adaptation funding, as opposed to focusing on emission mitigation. India's energy transition, therefore, needs to have a multifaceted approach. It cannot be only about renewable energy, and renewable should be expanded to include transition fuels like natural gas, and also, more importantly, nuclear power as well. And coal will continue to remain the mainstay, even as we are making far better progress than many other countries on nationally determined contributions. In fact, India's use of coal has not come in the way of India making much better progress on NDCs compared to Western nations. These considerations are discussed in great detail in the chapter on climate, and also in chapter 5 as well. In terms of financing, much of the flows today are concentrated on emission mitigation, but critically important given the fact that the greenhouse gases already in the atmosphere will anyway cause global warming and damage to countries' environment. Countries need to generate more adaptation financing. In fact, Nobel laureate Thomas Schelling very clearly said, if per capita income growth in the next 40 years compares with the 40 years just before that, vulnerability to climate change should diminish and the resources available for adaptation should be greater. I say this not to minimize concern about climate change, but to anticipate whether developing countries should make sacrifices in their development to minimize the emission of gases that may change the climate to their disadvantage. Their best defense against climate change may be their own continued development. Basically, the point is, economic growth and development generates the resources to be able to deal with energy transition and climate change. And therefore, if we have to continue to grow while making energy transition, prioritization should be on adaptation. And apart from the strategic considerations I mentioned earlier in terms of ensuring that we are not affected by the single source concentration risk that many countries, including India, are exposed to. And as we wrote in the last economic survey in chapter 13, the power of collective action, small changes, big impact, has to be also kept in mind. The lifestyle for environment movement, small individual actions, impact of lifestyle changes. A 13% change in global population behavior can reduce carbon emissions. For example, having the thermostat at 26 degrees or 27 degrees and having a small fan circulation will keep the room cool than keeping the thermostat at 20 degrees in summer, for example. Food waste reduction. Finishing food on a plate can save 90 kilograms of food waste per person annually, cutting down carbon emission and food loss. Carpooling and public transportation, which I alluded to earlier, can cut down transport sector emissions. Carpooling can save 380 million liters of fuel daily in India by reducing nearly 8 lakh rides per day. And public transportation, in terms of integrated solutions, is much better than focusing on tailpipe emissions through e-mobility, which also has a strategic angle to it. Recycling power. Recycling 1 ton of newspaper can prevent 25,000 liters of water wastage, contributing to more efficient resource use. Finally, we come to the state of the economy, which is the current. The economy grew 6% in the first half, and second half it is poised to do better. Growth remains close to decadal averages, especially if you look at agricultural sector gross value added, industry. They all have grown better than the average over the entire period between FY15 and FY24 in FY25. Services sector is almost there, but overall the point is that the pandemic effects have completely now been erased from the trend growth estimates. And you can see that in the different components of expenditure-based GDP. Gross fixed capital formation has improved from 28.2% to more than 30%. And consumption share, private consumption share has gone up from 58.7% to 61.8%. And government expenditure has come down, in fact, from 10.8 to 10.3% compared to FY18. And export share also has gone up from 18.8 in FY18 to an estimated 21.5% in FY25. So basically, compared to the pre-pandemic shares of GDP, there is a good contribution or a better contribution coming from exports and gross fixed capital formation and private consumption as well. And this is what I mentioned in the previous slide. If you look at the overall GVA on the top left, it has caught up with the trend growth, pre-pandemic trend. Agriculture has been above pre-pandemic trend, partly because of the growth in allied services, which I showed you earlier, which is a high single-digit growth rates. And industry has now just popped its head above the pre-pandemic trend, bottom left. And with respect to the overall services sector, again, we have caught up with the pre-pandemic trend as well. Inflationary pressures have come down, barring a few items. If you look at the left side, you see the core inflation, core food, consumer food price index, overall core inflation, and the CPI inflation. Core inflation is below 4%. Overall inflation is 5.2%, and the food price inflation index is close to about 8%. But if you remove specific items, then you can see that overall inflation trends are very subdued, and that is what the right side chart confirms for us. Headline inflation is 5%, but excluding tomatoes, onions, and potatoes is about 4%. Excluding pulse and vegetables is below 4% as well. In terms of export growth, while the headline numbers in merchandise exports may appear subdued, if you strip out petroleum and gems and jewelry, the growth is close to 10% between FY24 and FY25 in the first 8 months of the current financial year. And services sector in general have continued to grow in terms of the surpluses, and in the first half of the first 9 months of April to December 2023 and 2024, there has been a bigger surplus on the services trade as well. Naturally, all of this resulting in a balance of payments, which is very comfortable. Around 1% of GDP is the current account deficit. And therefore, financing this current account deficit has been not a problem despite successful and profitable exits by many businesses in the last 2 years. Even as the gross inflows are improving, the repatriations on account of profitable exits or transfer of ownership from direct to portfolio investors hasn't posed a problem for the current account because of the subdued oil prices, strong private transfers, and good export performance in the services sector, contributing to a current account deficit which is just around 1% of GDP. The growth outlook for FY26, we projected 6.5% to 7% for FY25, and this time we are projecting a growth outlook between 6.3 and 6.8% for FY26, which is in line with the projections made by many international organizations as well. The risk factor, of course, again, not only because of the changes in the global playing field, global stock markets also have become lately volatile, as we witnessed earlier this week. And we have an interesting box item in chapter 2 looking at the correlation between S&P 500 and the Nifty indices. Whenever in the last 24 years since the millennium began, whenever the S&P 500 corrected, what was the impact on Indian stocks and vice versa. So that is a factor that we need to keep in mind, because the massive growth in retail participation in the Indian stock market is definitely a good thing. But also, when the market corrects, it could have implications for spending intentions, and sentiment effect, etc. could be significant. And that is one risk we have kept in mind when we came up with the outlook between 6.3 and 6.8% for the real GDP growth. And as we always say, we will be very happy to be proven to be wrong and conservative if the final outcome turns out to be better than 6.8 as well. So to sum up, how do we raise our game for a new playing field when globalization is no longer going to provide the tailwind in terms of export growth and foreign investment growth? We need to deregulate to make it easier for small and medium enterprises to grow. Deregulation is about removing the fear of growth in micro, medium, and small enterprises. And this is about the plumbing and the nuts and bolts of deregulation, which are primarily there in the state and local government space. We have to continue to augment internal capacities for growth. Particularly, agriculture sector has a potential to contribute up to 1% to GDP growth. Private sector can do its part in terms of lifting the spending on R&D, in terms of striking a better balance between capital and labor share in their businesses, in terms of marketing of ultra-processed foods, and taking mental health seriously as well. With respect to energy transition, considerations of financing, considerations of supply chain concentration risk, etc. means that we need to focus on public transportation and adaptation as an important strategy rather than emission mitigation, in relatively speaking. Business as usual across all sectors, academia, private sector, governments, etc. Business as usual carries the risk of growth stagnation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for the presentation. Now, floor is open for the questions. So, starting with 127. Please introduce yourself and your organization's name, and then mic at 127.
Hi, sir. Good evening.
The entire element of tax borne by a good or a service will be represented by the GST paid on it. At present, GST is imposed in 4 slabs of 5%, 12%, 18%, and 28%.
Jai Mahakumbh, Jai Mahakumbh, Jai Mahakumbh, Jai Mahakumbh.
जय महाकुंभ पग पग जयकारा महाकुंभ तन कुंभ कुंभ मन कुंभ कुंभ जीवन सारा अब कुंभ कुंभ
जय महाकुंभ पग पग जयकारा महाकुंभ महाकुंभ तन कुंभ कुंभ मन कुंभ कुंभ जीवन सारा अब कुंभ कुंभ।
इस सत्य सनातन धारा का सौभाग्य हमारा महाकुंभ। जय महाकुंभ पग पग जयकारा महाकुंभ।
जय महाकुंभ पग पग जयकारा महाकुंभ तन कुंभ कुंभ मन कुंभ कुंभ जीवन सारा अब कुंभ कुंभ। जय महाकुंभ जय महाकुंभ।
संगम तीरे
जय घोष हुआ,
जय महाकुंभ
उद्घोष हुआ।
अनमोल धरोहर संस्कृति की इस पुण्य घड़ी की दस्तक सुन। संगम तीरे जय घोष हुआ, जय महाकुंभ उद्घोष हुआ। अनमोल धरोहर संस्कृति की इस पुण्य घड़ी की दस्तक सुन।
जय महाकुंभ पग पग जयकारा महाकुंभ